Live.
Woo!
Yeah, we're live.
Howdy. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome back to another full week of live streaming from the NIDA Roundabout channel. Today, we are joined by some very, very, very special guests. We have Lucy and Alloquois from the costume department. So today, they're going to give us a tour of the costume department. They're going to tell us what's up, what they're doing, what their creative making process is like, maybe a sneak peek at some of the costume designs as well. And it'll be an all-rounds absolute party. So, on to you guys. What's up? How are you this morning?
Hello, we're doing good. It's been a busy morning getting things ready.
A little bit hectic.
But yes, I'm Alloquois. I'm the costume supervisor.
And I'm Lucy. I'm the costume assistant.
We work as a little team here in the costume department. Yeah, right now we are currently in the quietest place we could find, which was the fabric store. So we're just surrounded by millions of bolts of fabric.
Which is fantastic. I love this room.
It is my happy place. I definitely love it in here.
Yes, I'm first year. So first years get to be the costume assistants, which is lots of fun. So basically Alloquois is telling what to do and I do it. So that's like we went to the fabric store. So sourcing fabrics that we didn't make. We're making for the show as well.
Yeah, there's a lot going on Roundabout. It's chaotic, but it's good fun. And as the supervisor, I am a third year at NIDA, and I finally get to have a minion. So I'm very happy to have someone to direct. We've been going pretty hard on the show, and the first years have been making Sam's outfit, which we'll give you a little sneak peek of later. And the most exciting part of that outfit is happening is my favorite, which is deciding which buttons are going to go on the shirt
and the skirt.
So those are the big decisions that are real fun that we get to make around
and we get
here.
to the fittings tomorrow. Tomorrow, which is also fun. So hope they fit. Fingers crossed.
Fittings in the COVID times. What is the
Fittings are difficult. There's a lot that has to happen. But basically, we just take every single step to make sure that both the costume student and the actors are protected. So the costume student will wear a mask and gloves, and the actor will wear a mask. And we have a maximum of 3 people allowed in the fitting room at any time. So usually that's like a first year maker, me, the supervisor, and also a teacher, just to make sure everything is going. Yeah. And everyone in the room has to wear a mask at all times.
Okay. That's good. That sounds great. It's definitely different.
Yeah, it's a big adjustment.
A lot of interesting protocols have been happening around NIDA, because usually the work that we do, I think across all departments, is like not socially distant in any way, shape, or form.
No, not at all.
Especially for you guys as well. So that's good to know. Very interesting. So why don't you guys take us on a little tour?
Yes, of course.
What's up?
Let's flip the camera. This is the costume store with Alloquois.
Yeah, so this is in the third year classroom. We have this big old closet full of fabric.
And pads and bustle pads and feathers. There's a feather.
Sorry, what's a bustle pad? I am explain it to me like
they're at the end. Bustle pads are basically you wear under period costumes to make the right silhouette. So like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of it too. Like Marie Antoinette has panniers, which are a type of bustle pads. And this is an Elizabethan one. So basically Shakespeare would pin this on around the waist.
Yeah. Right.
This tulle skirt goes over the top to smooth it out.
Right.
It's small in here, but I can show you a better one later.
And it just sits on the mannequin or on the human, and the dress goes over the top.
Makes you a bit more bootylicious, and we keep them in this horrific, tight little space. Simultaneously my happy place and the scariest place on earth.
So it's all color coded in here, which I love
Oh.
so much. It's so satisfying.
Okay, so as we step out, we'll step into the third year classroom. Now there's some people in class in here, so we're being a little bit covert.
Yes.
These are our irons.
Big industrial irons that are gravity fed and with a big steam. So they are lots and lots of fun.
Shoot one off.
Sorry, I was like,
Shoot off the steam.
speak up a little bit. I can't hear you too well on this side.
Sorry, we're just showing the irons and
Yeah.
like how they explode with steam to really press the garments so well, and it is so satisfying to use them.
Have you guys ever burned yourselves with the iron?
Girl, I burned myself all the way up this side of my body with the steam from that iron because I forgot to shoot it off before I ironed.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
exploded up to me, and I had this big red patch over my whole arm. It was really cute. And I was like, I don't want anyone to have to do too much paperwork because this is fully my fault. So I just dealt with it.
There, NIDA.
Yes.
Fine.
And behind, next to the irons, we have a steamer, which is out of order, and a costume rack, which costumes that we pulled out for another show called Ghost Lights. So there's lots of Hamlet-y type attire. There's a big codpiece on that one, which is quite fun. And all the doublets and hose.
Not quite roundabout appropriate, but who knows?
They could be time travelers as well.
Exactly.
So these costumes are from the store?
Yeah, these costumes we found, or I didn't find, Emily found at the store.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're probably made by NIDA students
At some point in time.
way back in the day. Probably as like class projects or maybe for other shows. You can see the distinct difference when we get into the roundabout costumes, starting off with a little
Graphic tee.
Hawaiian shirts.
Oh, wow. Love.
Yeah, we'll talk more about those later.
Exciting.
This is our third year classroom. This is where we all live for the majority of our time. We're all right now making for different shows. So, for example, I'm making for a NIDA show called Pops. This is part of that. And our stream is not working, but
No, it is working, kind of. Sorry. Yeah, so this is the big third year room, and they have so many desks, which is so much, it's just a lot nicer, bigger than costume one, which you'll see in a little bit.
yeah.
But here are some toiles.
Wow.
It's so beautiful. I love this coat. And you make a calico toile before you make a garment to make sure it fits
Right.
and to make sure your patterns work.
Okay.
So you can adjust this calico, which is a cheaper fabric, rather than wasting the actual fabric, which is often a lot more expensive.
Exactly. Yeah, let's go check out the other classrooms and let these guys have a break. Let me just make sure that costume tree doesn't mind us.
This is our little costume store that's kept at NIDA for lots of shoes and undergarments that are needed, like corsets and things that are needed for shows that we don't have to go to all the way to the big store. This is costume 2.
Costume 2 is working real hard and they're like sort of in crunch time. We don't want to interrupt them. Also, unfortunately, because of COVID, we did have to move everything to our homes. So there's actually nothing in there that's interesting to look at.
Whoa.
Yeah. But we can head into costume 1.
Where they're in class. So
Let's just try and be quiet.
Hello. Can we get a big shot? Hi, everyone. Here's the first year classroom. They're doing
Cutting class.
Yes, we're doing 1850s, and yes, we're creating our bodice construction.
Yes.
Which is quite fun. It'll end up looking
Like,
hopefully like this one, hanging up out of real fabric. not just calico.
Wow.
And with 2 sleeves.
With trim, 1850s trims and
Oh, so cute.
pagoda sleeves and everything. Yeah,
This
so
is a
we've
delicious-
created our 1850s drop shoulder here.
Yeah. So everything in Marcia's class we do on paper and then translate into fabric.
Yes. So we measure the body, then we construct a pattern to fit the body. And this one is specifically for the 1850s.
Very beautiful.
Yep, and we have other shows in construction. This is for Lunacy,
Oh, wow. That looks amazing.
which is an awful fabric to sew with.
What fabric?
Beautiful finish.
Yes.
That's actually interesting.
And we made Edwardian jackets.
Ooh.
So this is my one, which is nearly finished. It's quite pretty. The sleeves are huge and I love them. Yeah. But it's a nice velvet. And then we have other Lunacy projects out of calico.
Again, big shoulders. Love her.
There's about 7 shoulder pads under there on each shoulder,
Really love that.
which is nice. And there's a big bustle skirt, which we're draping as well. We had to make the bustles and then the petticoats, and then we can drape the bustle while we're in quarantine. And there's beautiful pictures up in the classroom.
So when you guys are making costumes, whose measurements do you use, like for class assignments?
For class, we use our mannequin measurements.
Right.
So for this cutting class, we use we put a corset on our mannequin and then measure up. I'm just going to head out of the classroom. And then we measure over the corset.
Thank you.
So we measure over the corset on our mannequins, and then we translate that into the book.
Right. Okay. I guess the phrase "measure twice, cut once" is like a big thing for you guys, right?
Definitely.
Like measure 58 times.
Cut once, like very carefully.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then for these shows, we get them actors' measurements. We've already got taken last year, so hopefully they haven't changed weight too much.
Right.
Because we were not able to measure them this time because of COVID. So that's a difference this year. Do you want to hold it?
Yes.
I'm just going to show the chat.
I'm holding the camera now. Hello. Yes, we came back to 3rd year because everybody seems to be very busy at work at the moment. Didn't want to interrupt them too much.
It must be nice to be back in the building, right, guys?
Oh my gosh.
It is so good.
It is so good to be back.
I didn't realize how much I missed the industrial machines until we get to use them again.
For sure. I know also my productivity took a real hit when I was at home. I wasn't doing as much as I should have.
So while you guys were in quarantine, how did that work for you?
Our classes didn't change that much. They pushed back millinery and tailoring classes and brought forward draping and costume history in the theory classes. So it doesn't really change much from first term for us. We took our mannequins home with us and we had our own machines. So it was a lot slower, but it wasn't that hard for us, I think. I had a good setup at home, so it wasn't that bad. Other people struggled a lot more than I did.
Yeah, we had a very different situation in 3rd year. So 3rd year is a little bit weird for us to begin with, just in a normal timeline, unlike this screwed up 2021. But 3rd years in costume don't actually start coming back to school until late March. So we had been back to school for 1 week before quarantine hit.
Yeah.
And so we hadn't really started anything. Like we didn't really have any classes before we were all sent home. Like one of our classmates actually was still in Melbourne and she just came back from Melbourne like 2 weeks ago. So it was pretty crazy. We didn't get a lot of due dates changed. Everything is just sort of supposed to happen on the same timeline as before.
Yeah.
That's the same with us as well. But they've been sending us they sent us a few packages of fabric.
Oh, they sent you packages?
Yeah,
That's
we got
so
2 packages, like big boxes in the mail with calico and paper and like here's the boning for this project, which was lots of fun. We got to it was like an unboxing.
That is fun.
Excitement.
I wish my tutor sent me packages.
I know.
But we did have to post in our assignments as well, which was interesting. So like
scary.
We had to like send our measurements of our boxes in and then stick things on it and then leave them on the doorstep for the courier to come pick up and deliver to Sydney.
Wow.
Ew. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Which was quite fun.
Yeah, we didn't do much from home. We had a couple like computer classes where we sort of learned Photoshop briefly and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm really glad to be back in the building and finally like have purpose again. I feel like I was floating in the void for a few months there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know exactly how that feels. I was saying to Lindsay, my course, TTSM, is probably the best suited for online learning.
Yeah.
I mean, it still sucks, but the whole time that we were in quarantine, I was like, oh God, this sucks. But I was always thinking about you guys and props and sets because like, oh my God, it's like the complete opposite of what you guys do.
Yeah.
I think especially for stuff like sets where I can't see how sets could possibly take anything home because everything they do is huge.
Like at least we could take our mannequins and we had sewing machines and it wasn't that big. It was still a full carload for my parents to come pick me up in Sydney, but it wasn't like a workshop's worth of stuff.
It was a bit difficult because some of us didn't have sewing machines and stuff like that, but once we got set up I think it was fine. But I can't imagine, even props, I'm like, one of my roommates is in props and she couldn't bring anything home because they work with a lot of hazardous chemicals. So obviously you can't have those at home because it's illegal. So they just had a lot of stuff put on hold. And like most courses, we had a bunch of paperwork moved up. So they wrote like 5 essays or something. Yeah. Love essays.
So we have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
First of all, we have Isaac Barron in the chat. He says hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Isaac says he's been banned from the sewing machines.
Okay, fair.
What else? Chloe says, what is your favorite color / favorite type of fabric?
That's a really hard question.
I think I know right away what mine is.
You go.
Off the bat, my favorite color is blue. I wear exclusively blue. And my favorite kind of fabric is velvet. I hate sewing with velvet, but I love touching velvet. I love looking at velvet. I like the smell of velvet. Everything about it is attractive to me. I would marry velvet if I could, hands down. Man of my dreams.
I love turquoise and blue, which I usually are exclusively wearing as well, except for today.
Today you're so bright.
I know. I love it. I love the shinier fabrics. So like a satin, hot, but and like I love a chiffon as well.
Oh, she likes them flowy.
I like the flowy drape. I also love velvet though, so everything. But I like fabrics that are really hard to sew with.
What makes them hard to sew with? Sorry.
What made us become sewers, did you say?
Well, that is a good question, but what is the hardest fabric to sew and what makes a fabric hard to sew with?
I think I really hate sewing with sequins because you have to unpick all of the sequins along the sewing line because if you run over them, it breaks the needle.
Yeah.
So like it's like easier so once you've done all the prep for it, but that can take hours, like every single piece. You have to go around and unpick all the sequins on the seam allowance. So that's a pain. I don't like velvet and things like that are tricky to sew, mainly because you can't iron them very well.
Yeah.
So like when you sew, you sew a seam and then you press it open to help it keep neat and flat.
Right.
But things like
velvet, sequins, anything that's made with like a high content of polyester, which is essentially plastic, if you apply heat to it, it'll melt, which makes it really difficult to sew because
and like
melts.
thin fabrics often get caught in the machine, which can make them really tricky.
So I think what we're saying is all fabrics are hard to sew, and
but like that lunacy dress we saw, the purple one on the mannequin, that's like a plastic stretch fabric covered in.
It's a PVC covered lycra, so
but you have to sew it. You can't really unpick because if you unpick it, you can see all the holes.
So you have to sew it right the first time.
So you have like one chance.
Measure twice, sew once.
Precisely.
Also hard, yeah, because we're working on the measurements from people from last year. So for a leotard, that's meant to be quite fitted, you can only sew once, is very difficult.
I can imagine, yeah.
With not all the right measurements.
Yeah.
But things like cotton and linen, I love sewing because you can iron them really well. They don't slip and slide against each other too much, like satins slip and slide against each other. So like they move while you're sewing as well, which makes them tricky.
Yeah.
We have, do you guys still have the aprons that you made in first year?
Somewhere.
Mine's
I think mine's under my desk.
Mine's at home right now. But flip the camera, we can show them something. A lot of the other girls do use theirs for dyeing. So like right here. Right here is the one that Emily made in first year. Much the worse for wear. She uses it for dyeing. I think Tess Healy also uses hers. Probably Apple as well, but hers is really nice. So I don't think she ruins it by dyeing it. Mine's at home because I use it to cook.
Oh, cute. My apron, it's super cute, but I'm not very good at the sewing machine. So literally as soon as I took it home, it just fell apart.
Oh, sis, so bad.
I might come in one day in third year and be like, all right, full circle. I'm finally going to fix my apron and it'll be fine.
Anyone should be good at sewing if they practice enough. So I believe in it.
Yeah, I'm just happy to get threads all over myself when I sew.
Yeah, that's the real key.
Okay, a couple more questions. Isaac says, what is your favorite bobbin size?
I mean, standard? I like the standard bobbin.
Oh, cute. And he also says, what is your favorite tool / machine in the costume workshop? So that's across everything that you guys do.
I love the industrial machine, and it like cuts the threads automatically.
Ta-da! She's beautiful. Let's give a little tour of the industrial machine. You asked, so you're going to have this now.
Here's a bit of fabric.
This is an industrial sewing machine. First you turn it on, then you turn the light on. One of the most amazing features of the industrial sewing machine is the automatic back tack. So when you sew, you have to do a little bit of a back stitch at the beginning so that the sewing doesn't just all pull out. And on an industrial machine, you just hit a button and it does it for you. So that's amazing. And the other great feature of an industrial machine is the knee lift for the presser foot. So this little thing here is called the presser foot, and it works with the feed dogs to hold the fabric in place while I sew. So for example, I put it there. Now, most domestic machines, the presser foot is controlled by a lever on the back, which this machine does have. But the best feature is that you can actually do it hands-free by using your knee. Come down a little bit soon. You can use your knee to press this, which will lift the presser foot. So you can do it without the hand. In action, that looks like this. And then when you get to the end, on a domestic machine, usually you have to do the back tack, raise the presser foot, and then cut the string yourself. But on an industrial machine, you can just tap the pedal backwards and it does it all by itself. Watch this. Boom. And then I can just
lift the foot.
It's all done.
Amazing. Wow.
I don't know if that sewing machine tech babble made sense to anybody else, but basically this thing is my wife, my child, and my Holy Trinity. I love it so much.
Love, efficiency, convenience.
Yes, everything about it is beautiful.
Amazing. We have, so Daniel from third year says, his apron went well on the overlocker. He was going for a semicircle pocket, I think. But because he had to adapt to more of an angled shape.
I think I do remember that. The overlocker is a scary machine. It's basically a sewing machine that
finishes the edges nicely.
It sews the edge of the fabric, and it also has a really sharp knife that cuts off the edge of the fabric. And they go real fast.
Oh, yeah.
Real fast. I'm sure anyone who's ever used an industrial overlocker can attest to the fact that it is like dancing with knives. It's terrifying, but it's so satisfying. I remember Daniel on the overlockers.
I think every year group, there's always a story of someone having a really, really, really bad time on the overlocker. Zach Sarek, shout out to Zach, who's doing the tech right now, but he has a similar experience.
Oh no. What did he do? Did he cut something off that shouldn't have been cut off?
Oh, just like the whole, like, as soon as you see Zach on the overlocker, you wait for the, like, and then you just hear, oh, fuck, shit.
Okay, to be fair, I've been studying for 3 years, and that's still me most days. So, like, it is really a learned talent. Really a learned talent.
And you have to have the confidence to just go for it.
Yeah. You have to approach it. It's like they can smell fear, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And when you can see the little knife, that's what gets me. It's horrifying.
I hate those things. Like, my mom once said to me, because my mom's a bit of a seamstress as well, she said, an overlocker will cut your finger off if you're not careful. And so I'm so scared. I don't know if that's true. It's just like when your mom tells you something,
you believe it.
It's gospel.
I can imagine it. I can see it. I can see
They look sharp, right?
Yeah. Right. But if you see Zach Sarek in the building, everyone, ask him for his overlocker impression, because it's kind of...
I want to see that. I'll hunt him down now. Was there any other questions?
Not right now, but... Cameron says the overlocker is an angry boy.
Yeah, he's right. Or she's right. They're right.
Yeah.
Isaac says, will someone teach him how to sew?
Isaac, if you come down here when we don't have anything to do,
which is
good
never,
luck, but maybe is the answer. Maybe.
Yeah, let's take a look at the Roundabout costumes.
Yes, let's do it.
Exciting.
So this is Sam.
This is what's being made. So Lucy has...
I made the blouse, which is no buttons yet, one cuff, and the collar's loosely sewn in for the fitting, so we can change all of those.
Yeah, this is what we call first fitting stage. So a lot of things aren't quite finalized yet, just in case they have to change in the fitting. It's like often the sleeve won't be finalized because a lot of times it'll need to be moved to fit properly on the actor's shoulder. The collar isn't quite finalized because these points might change. And Lucy has done literally an amazing job because everything looks... I think what makes a costume look good is if it kind of looks like store quality. And I think this looks like I would pay a lot of money for it.
Hopefully it is linen, so that's a beautiful fabric to work with. Kind of looks kind of boring sometimes, but it irons so well and it looks so beautiful on. Yeah. So that's been fun to sew with.
And then this skirt, oh, sorry, Sid.
Oh, good. I love wearing linen, and I love
I love a good linen.
Yeah.
The skirt is a linen blend fabric
with rayon.
Get into that later. And Oliver from first year has made this skirt for us. Now, since it's to first fitting stage, there's no fastenings. It's just safety pinned together. And the pockets are made of calico because we have a pretty limited amount of fabric and we didn't want to cut out the pockets if they're going to change.
And pockets are often the ones that change.
Exactly. Pockets will usually change, especially like the shape. For example, we've got a square one here and a rounded one here. And what will happen is we'll put it on our actor spec in the fitting. And Angus, the designer, will sort of choose how things need to change. And the designer always needs to give that final approval before we can finish a garment. Or we want the designer to give a final approval. Another thing, sorry.
No, Angus is actually watching the stream right now.
Oh my gosh, hi.
He says it looks so good and he thinks that you guys made the right choice with the fabric.
Oh, yes, awesome. We did. It was a really amazing process because Angus got to the fabric store like probably 10 minutes ahead of us. And by the time me and Lucy got there, Angus was like, well, I want this fabric and this fabric. And I was like, I love it. They look great.
Let's get it.
And go home. It was the most productive fabric shopping trip I've ever had in my life.
Yay.
Yeah. The process that we are doing now, which will probably continue in the fitting with Angus tomorrow, is choosing buttons for this ensemble. So we have a lot of options all here. And basically in the fitting, we'll pin the buttons on and we'll sort of have a chat with Angus about what he likes. And
for the skirt and for the shirt.
Yeah. Very fun.
Exciting.
Yeah, I think choosing, as I was saying earlier to everyone, choosing buttons is like my favorite part of costume making because I'm obsessed with the details. Like I like sewing on ribbons, I like choosing buttons, I like all the weird nitty gritty stuff that seems kind of unimportant until you finish.
And it looks so good on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So.
And we've been also figuring out Kit's ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
So just a copyright thing. There are some printed graphic tees here, so we have to figure out what the copyright surrounding those is. But yeah, we're hoping for Kit to have a fun top and then some cute pajama pants.
Cute.
And again, this is a huge collaborative process between the costume department and the design department. So Angus and me and Lucy are really working together to figure out what this will be. And
it's an interesting part of the costuming world because we've made part of the costumes, we've sourced a whole lot from the store, and we've bought some. So it's all a mixture of different places we get the costumes from.
Exactly. We've got some Peter Alexander, some Target, and then this is from the NIDA costume store, which is a godsend. A lot of places don't have a costume stock like we have, and we're really lucky to have it.
And the costume store is amazingly organized.
It's
shout out to Rob. You're cool. You're the best.
Yes.
Shout out.
What about Pat's costume?
We have that on the rack.
Fun. Yeah, Pat's on the rack here. We've got, I think, 5 different shorts for him to try. And because we're working with outdated measurements, I've got a couple different sizes just to make sure we'll have something that fits him. Pat's entire costume right now is sourced from the NIDA store, which is really good because it means we haven't spent any of the budget, and it also means that if things don't work, it's really easy to return them. So he's got like some cargo shorts and a Hawaiian t-shirt, which we have a few of here as well.
A few options.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we'll
try them all on.
Them, and we'll try everything on Lee, and Angus will decide which one's his favorite, and then we'll sew a NIDA tag in it so that everyone knows it belongs to NIDA now. We'll write Lee's name on it so no one gets confused, and it'll wait for him in the dressing room until the show goes live.
Yeah, and we're just finding a solid white shirt to wear underneath. We only think we found one in the store.
Yeah.
So we might have to source another nice white shirt to wear under the Hawaiian.
It's my favorite, or Kmart, my favorite store in the world, comes into play. You can buy like a 3-pack of white t-shirts for like $2. So thank you, fast fashion.
And our Uzbek soccer fan.
Ooh.
Which is not Uzbek colours, I'm sorry.
But, you know, she'll pass. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Roundabout is a really fun show because it has modern clothing, and a lot of what we do at NIDA is generally period clothing, like these, you know, Elizabethan doublets and stuff, which is really fun in its own way, but it gets very complicated very fast. So I'm very happy to be doing a modern show, and also something that has so few characters, because then you can really focus on each character and on their looks and making sure each one of them has the exact right clothing
for their personalities and storyline. And
exactly, I'm all about expressing personality through clothes. As a costume person, I'm like, the first thing I always notice about everyone is what they're wearing, and that informs me of their personality. Probably too much. I'm a real judge by my first look at people kind of person.
I mean, that makes sense if that's, you know, what you do.
The way my brain works.
Yeah. So you guys where are you guys from in Australia / the world, and how did you, like, what's your costume story before you came to NIDA?
Who do you want? You go first.
I'm from Canberra. Shout out to everyone from Canberra. I love it so much. But I I had a gap year last year, so I traveled around Europe, Turkey, China, Singapore for 5 months by myself, which was like an amazing experience. Definitely recommend.
I didn't realize you were by yourself the whole time.
Not for the whole, I had family over there, so I was catching up with family and things, but it was basically by myself. but I did my year 12 production single-handedly, designing and making all the costumes. So that's kind of, my favorite one with that was the transforming dress that like she spun on stage and it changed.
Wow,
which was really
so
cool. But my mum was a textile conservator when I was little before she became a teacher. So I've been sewing for many, many years and grown up with like boxes of fabric all around the house, which is fantastic. So it was good being home for quarantine because they're like, oh, just use this light fabric we didn't send you. And I could just pop down to our shed and find
some light fabric.
Some light fabric to use.
That's really cool. So are your family sort of like artists as well?
Well, my dad's an astrophysicist. So
okay,
not,
so no.
Quite different.
That's quite different.
But mum's a teacher now, but she was a textile conservator. So yeah, arts on that side. My grandfather's a painter.
Okay.
So like it's in the family a little bit.
You got the fine arts in your blood.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Lucky for me.
My family's a bit different. So my mum and my dad are both scientists. And I am actually from Portland, Oregon in the United States. So I came a long way for NIDA. I moved here just before first year. I was straight out of high school, but in a different way than a lot of people who come to NIDA straight out of high school, because in America, we finish high school in May. So I had about a year before NIDA started the next February. Yeah, the next February. And I moved out here and I lived with my mom, who's lived in Australia since I was 14. And just really got down to NIDA immediately. It was sort of my first theater experience. I grew up not going to the theater very often. It was kind of like a special thing that I did with school every now and again. But I was always really interested in fashion. So I originally thought that I wanted to do fashion design. But whenever I talked to fashion design teachers, they always said I was too costumey. And I was like, well, then I guess that's a sign that I should just do that instead. So I was looking all over in the States for a program that would let me just do costume. I didn't want to do, in America, in a lot of colleges, you have to do what's called prerequisites. So for example, I would have to take like a calculus class in order to do costume design. And I was like, I'm not good at calculus. I'm not trying to do a calculus class to learn how to cut out fabric.
Probably needed it for cutting class sometimes.
I mean, probably. Math is important, but I couldn't find anything in the States. So I started looking in Australia and found NIDA, and it's just such a singular program. It's like the only program in maybe the world where you can just extremely focus on costume making. Very singular.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's way cheaper than going to college in the States as well. So ooh, way less student debt for me.
Do you see yourself going back to the States after you finish, or are you gonna hang out in Sydney with us?
Well, seeing as I finish in November of this year, I don't know if I will be able to go back to the States for a little while. As I'm sure Sean can attest, the States is kind of a huge disaster right now. I hope to go back eventually. But my like ideal life is sort of like a half split. So like 6 months in America and 6 months in Australia, because I just have such a beautiful community in both places. Yeah,
that's lovely. My grandmother used to be she used to do like the costume and fashion course at Texas. I'm not sure what it's like, but I did not follow the costume route like you guys.
No.
I went down a very different route, but yeah, it seems like a lot of people who do costume, it's something that they learn from their mothers or their grandmothers or people in their family, and I think that's like a really beautiful, like there's an element of like tradition and heritage in it that I think is really lovely.
Yeah, and that's something I really love about when we do make period costume at NIDA. I feel like I'm keeping a tradition alive of like sewing these garments that people would have worn hundreds of years ago. It's something.
Yeah, and costumes is so important to a show. Like a lot of people often don't realize and like leave costume to the last minute, or it's just not on people's radar. But then when you like a lot of when the actors put on their costumes, they're like I can see the character now.
Exactly.
So I love that part of it.
I love when you get into a fitting and the actor tries on their costume for the first time and they just love it and they become their character once they put those clothes on. I'm not an actor myself, but I've had a lot of actors tell me that when they put on the costume, that's when it can really inform the character. And I love being a part of what makes that happen.
Yeah.
I'm getting gushy about it. I'm like, I just love my job so much.
Process. It's like, I always think of it as like, costume is like the final piece that like ties everything together, because it's not until tech of a show where you finally see the actors acting in costume with lights and on stage and everything, and it's like, wow, look at this incredible thing that we've all worked to create. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
I think like the two most underrated parts of a show that I pay attention to a lot are always, actually there's a few, but I think like sound, lights, and costume are often overlooked, and I just think they like
make a show.
It's so important. Compliment actors' work. Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Let's see. Isaaca's costume rocks. Woo!
Hey.
Do you guys have any other fun things in the costume room?
Look, at the moment,
it's just a lot of things, like there's lots of pictures up around people's desks about what shows they love, and
yeah, we have a bunch of really weird wall hangings. We each have our own space, so we each get to sort of set up our space how we want. How do I flip the camera?
A tour of your space, Alloquois?
This is my space, so this is my wall space. I like to keep it homey. I got a sandwich press and a hot water kettle down there.
The necessities in costume.
Real necessities.
For our tea breaks.
A very old board. I've got some little paintings that my girlfriend made me. Some childhood photos. There's a very vintage Alloquois.
Love.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, there's not a lot in the classroom right now because we're all sort of moving back in and also very aware that we could be sent home again and set into quarantine again. So we're sort of keeping most of our stuff at home and bringing it in. We also each like to personalize our machines. So this is my little personalized machine. I'm really into Captain America, so I've got a lot of little Captain America things happening everywhere. I used to have a Avatar The Last Airbender one. Oh, there he is. That's my little girl. He came with a little Momo as well. That was a present from my classmates for my birthday. Yeah. So everybody sort of has their own situation going on, which I'm not gonna take too far because
we have often the drawings of the other shows and things as well.
Some really cool sneak peeks of the other shows.
Oh, wow.
This is Emily's desk. She took her photo duty very seriously. She's a real nerd. We love her.
This is important because at night you spend a lot of time in your classrooms.
At the moment, we're being sent home early, but
I know.
For a typical day, we'd like to be here a lot longer.
I think in second year, I actually basically lived at NIDA because usually you're allowed to be here from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. And I was here from those times. Consistently. Yeah. Ooh, the irons are making a sound.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. Do you guys have a favorite costume that you have made for a show at NIDA? I guess this is for Alloquois.
That's a me question. I don't have a favorite costume that I made for a show at NIDA, but I do have a favorite that I made for a class project. And that was in second year, we do our big opera project, where we essentially get a brief for like a big play and we design and make a costume for it. We didn't technically do an opera. We actually did Caucasian Chalk Circle, which is not renowned for having big costumes, seeing as it's actually a Brechtian piece. But we were given the brief that we had to design a costume for one of the female characters, and the play was being reset in the 1770 Russo-Turkish wars over the Caucasus region.
Oh, nice.
Whoa.
it was a lot, but it was really fun. I got to research, Russian fashion and Turkish fashion and some traditional sort of outfits. It was crazy. Unfortunately, I don't have the costume here, but basically it ended up being this really beautiful, big 1700s skirt made of this fabric.
Oh, wow.
Covered in a lot of like sequins like this. Let's see, do I have any other fabric from it? This fabric was also involved. It was a lot of gold, a lot of blue, a lot of red. I wish I had a picture of it because it was truly gorgeous. I really love that OTT and just ornate. So, yeah. Lucy hasn't done much for shows yet. Do you have a favorite like class project that you've done? What about that jacket that you were showing earlier?
That jacket was fun. It was a pain in the bum to sew, but we did I love Tudors, so like anything Tudor, I'm there for. But we did Elizabethan jackets, and that was lots of fun, even though we were at home. I don't know, I just enjoying everything at the moment. Because we're basically only working in calico. So anything we make in real fabric is very exciting at this stage. So I'm very excited for our 1850s.
Yeah, in NIDA's world, sort of the way it works is in first year you do most everything in calico. You don't really do much in what we call real fabric, so fun fabric. And then in second year it's like an intensive, we call it the portfolio year, because you do everything. Like you design the costume, you find the fabric for the costume, you make the costume, and you make them for the people in your class. So it's really fun because you get to have costumes made for you as well. That's my favorite part. And then in third year, it's more of a show year or a practical year. So we work on the NIDA productions, and we don't have very many like class projects at all. It's mostly
and your big major work. And
yes, we do our major work as well, which is what I'm working on right now at the same time as Sarah. You can take the stuff off if you want.
So we have 2 or 3 more questions, and then if it's okay, Alloquois, I would love to hear about your major work and what you're doing.
Exciting.
So we have so for Annette's class, you were drawing and cutting paper. Is that any kind of special paper, or is that just like?
It is special. It's upside down on the roll. But yeah, we have this giant roll of paper here on the wall. We call it dot and cross paper.
Oh, wow.
Dots and crosses.
And they're 1 inch intervals, which is kind of annoying when you work in centimeters.
Oh, I didn't know there were inch intervals. That's interesting.
They are. So if you do 5 centimeters, it's perfect. But it's so nice to have like lines you can match up.
Yeah, so basically it's just like sort of a thin paper, which is nice. And it also has those dots and crosses in nice parallel lines. And a lot of patterns are based around parallel lines. So it makes everything a lot easier.
Right. Okay. That's good to know. And Angus says, can we please see the haberdashery?
Yes.
How did we forget Habby? Angus, oh my God, thank you. So not only do we have the giant fabric store with like, this the special Habby.
All the trims.
We have the general Habby. The Habby is
haberdashery.
Haberdashery refers to anything that has to do with sewing that isn't fabric, I think.
Yeah, and we have our scrap boxes, so we can just come and use this fabric and scraps of interfacing.
This is the Habby. Welcome. I'm gonna start just some.
Things like threads. Lots of threads.
So many. Hat making supplies. You've actually caught us at a good time because Habby is relatively organized right now. There's only like 3 things on the ground.
Sure, that's
regular. My favorite place in the world.
Buttons.
I love buttons. More buttons.
And there's a lot of buttons.
More buttons. More buttons. So we amass a lot of things here at NIDA because it's just accumulated.
So there's so much.
From like, the 70s. But yeah, this is the Habby.
And another thing we do here during show season is a lot of washing of clothes.
Yeah.
So we have our laundry. set up and only one of us can go in.
Yes. Yeah, social distancing. There's only one of us allowed. Do you want me to take the camera?
Yeah.
We just got new washing machines. So this is the pride and joy of the costume department. I don't know how to work them, but they're beautiful. Mwah.
Right. So we have maybe about like 5 to 10 more minutes, maybe. Alloquois, do you want to tell us about your major work? I'm excited.
Yes, I'm gonna go into the fabric store so that it's nice and quiet. But my major work is a real work in progress at the moment. So basically, major work, we get to choose whatever we want, and we essentially make ourselves experts in that topic. And then we make a material-based research project about it. So I have always been obsessed with Greek mythology because I read Percy Jackson at a very impressionable age. So I decided that I wanted to look at the Iliad as a source text for my major work. So I read a book called The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which is a retelling of sort of the whole life of Achilles, not just the Trojan War.
Oh. I think we just lost.
Who is often.
Sorry, guys, you just cut out for a second there.
Are we back?
Well, you were talking about it's about the whole life of Achilles, not just the Trojan War.
Yes, it's actually told from the perspective of his
Lover,
Patroclus, who's often cast as his cousin in most retellings. So
that's a bit of fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact for everyone. I was really drawn to this story not only because I'm interested in Greek mythology, but because I'm really interested in queer stories, because I'm queer, so I like to see queer stories reflected in history where they may otherwise have been overlooked. So all that aside, I decided that the best way for me to sort of look at this story myself would be to create a suit of armor for Achilles. There's a really pivotal scene in the story where Achilles is refusing to fight in the Trojan War, and so Patroclus decides that he's going to go and pretend to be Achilles and fight in the war for Achilles. So he basically dresses himself in Achilles' armor and goes out to fight the Trojans. So I decided to make that particular suit of armor. I've got a lovely NIDA actor who's going to play Patroclus for me, and I've decided to make it out of leather. So I'm wet molding the leather into the shape of armor, which in this case is called an anatomical cuirass. So basically, if you think of like what I like to call a thirsty Roman movie, those suits of armor that sort of look exactly like a delicious six-pack and like really like a really hot man.
Right.
That's what I decided to make.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm just really endeavoring to make that sort of quickly because major work presentations are in early September and I want to make a short film.
Ooh.
So yes, I've never worked with leather before, so I'm pushing myself a lot to do this, but it's really an important story to me and I want to do it justice. So yeah.
Fantastic. I can't wait to see how that turns out in September. I love the major work presentations. So interesting what people like. I mean, I didn't have much experience with costumes, so it's cool to like learn, like very intensely about one specific thing. Yeah.
And the different things that everyone comes up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So I don't think we have any more questions in the chat, but it's been a wonderful, wonderful hour with you guys. It's nice to be back in the building, I'm sure. Do you guys have anything else that you want to add before we sign off?
No, just thank you so much for having us and for letting us do this tour. It's been really good to connect with the audience.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe in a couple of weeks we can do a little check-in, see how the costumes are going. It would be nice to see like a progression, and then like when we finally see them in the show, That'll be super cool.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, guys. I'm sure I'll see you around soon. And of course, thank you to everyone for watching and giving us questions and participating in the stream as well. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. We have some really exciting stuff this week. We have some special guests. We have more rehearsals. We have some fun tech stuff. Yeah, we'll see you guys then. Thank you to
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Are we supposed